Described in newspaper clippings as one of the famous Indian characters of the Southwest, Tuckabache is the Tulsa legend you've likely never heard of. But you are probably familiar with the land on which he lived and hunted and grew crops, Tulsa's world-class park, the Gathering Place.
If you don't know the story of Tuckabache, of his life, you don't know the history of Tulsa.
Native author J.D. Colbert recently landed himself on the bestsellers list for his new book, Between Two Fires, a historical fiction book centered on allotment-era crime and injustice in Tulsa.
So I knew, knowing the Mvskoke Creek history, that he would have been Tuckabache, he would have walked the Trail of Tears, he would have been under the council oak tree when Tuckabache arrived and resettled their town, and lived through even the discovery of oil, the allotments.
Tuckabache was a warrior who fought against assimilation during tribal conflicts and for the Union during the Civil War.
He was very much looked up to, primarily, I'd say, as a warrior, as a well-respected medicine man, what we call a Hilashaya.
Despite his prestige, even Tuckabache's land was not immune to allotment-era atrocities. Estates, which the Indian Rights Association said were shamelessly and openly robbed in a scientific and ruthless manner in their 1924 report, Oklahoma's Poor Rich Indians. Tanya Duncan, Tuckabache's third great-granddaughter, founded the Lucinda Hickory Research Institute in 2020 to research and expose allotment-era crime and injustice.
What that document did for me was confirm everything I had been told growing up.
Tuckabache's wife, Lena, died between 1880 and 1890. He outlived all three of his children, who died relatively young with no record of cause. His son died at just 22 years old, his daughter, Sally, at 36, and her husband, Moses Cooney, at 42. All three died around 1900. Nothing is known about Tuckabache's third child, Sarah, aside from the fact that she was dead long before enrollment. In 1904, Tuckabache's guardian granted a right-of-way easement on his allotted land to the Midland Valley Railroad, what is known as the Midland Valley Trail today.
I have a newspaper article that reports that Tuckabache fought that easement to everything he had, but the railroad went to the government for a right-of-way easement. And we know that happens.
Colbert, an LHRI co-founder, says that trail should be known by another name, Tuckabache Trail. And that's not all. LHRI has called for a historical marker at the Gathering Place, recognizing Tuckabache and the land's history since before it opened. It's thought that rumors Tuckabache was a slave owner could be holding up that recognition, allegations both Colbert and Duncan deny.
The full-bloods, the traditionalists, they lived in a very traditional way. One might even say kind of a hunter-gatherer existence. They hunted their property, they grew crops, they fished, they lived in very simple, modest log cabins. They would have had no need for slaves.
I'm very careful about what I say in my research, and I'm not fond of a lot of people that did my family wrong, but I will have the documents to prove why I believe that.
When VNN contacted the Gathering Place to find out the status of a historical marker, Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Andrea Leach, said they are currently in conversation with the Mvskoke Creek Nation for documentation of the history of the land. We're told Mvskoke Creek Nation Historic and Cultural Preservation is currently working on that request. Be on the lookout for our next Stealing Tulsa story to learn why the deaths of Tuckabache and his heirs were so suspicious and how the injustice against their family continued even after death. For VNN, I'm Brittany Harlow.